Crispin, The Cross of Lead by Avi. Chapter 8. Father Quinel lived behind our stone church in an attached room without windows. Though I saw no light beneath the door, one of the few doors our village boasted, I knocked softly. "Who's there?" "It's me, Father Quinel. Esta son." A slight sound came from within. The door pulled open. The priest's small, pale face peered out. His once white alb, which covered him neck to foot, seemed ghost-like. Frail from his many years, Father Quinel had served in Stromford for his entire life. Now he was small and wizen, with sparse, gray, tonsured hair. Some claimed he was the unwanted son of the previous Lord Furnival, who had provided him with the church living when Quinel was still a boy. "God be praised. Is that truly you?" he whispered. "Yes, Father," I said, adding quickly, "and I didn't steal that money." He made the sign of the cross. "Bless Jesus, to hear you say it. I didn't think it likely." Clutching me with his trembling, bony hand, he said, "Come quickly. The church will be safest. You're being looked for everywhere. I have some food for you. If anyone comes, claim sanctuary." He led me inside the church, a large building. It took a man standing on another's shoulders to reach the pointed roof. Some said it was as old as the world, built when our blessed Savior was first born. Not even Goodwife Peregrine, who was the oldest person in our village, knew for sure. The church contained a single open space where we villagers knelt on the rush-strewn floor to face our priest and altar during Mass. Above, in deep shadow, was the carved crucifix, Jesus in his agony. Below him, on the altar, stood the fat tallow candle, whose constant fluttering flame shed some light upon the white walls of painted lime. The font, where our babes were baptized, was off to one side. Two faded images were on the walls. One was of our Blessed Lady, her big eyes with grief, the tiny holy child in her arms. The other revealed St. Giles, protecting the innocent deer from hunters, a constant reminder as to what our faith should be. Since I was born on his day, and he was the villagers' patron saint, I held him for my kin I never had. When no one else was there, I would creep into the church to pray to him. I wished to be the deer that he protected. Near the altar, the priest, genuflected. He did the same. Then we knelt facing each other. "Speak low," he said. "There's always Judas lurking. Are you hungry?" "Yes, Father," I murmured. From behind the tattered altar cloth, he produced a loaf of barley bread and gave it to me. "I was hoping you would come," he said. I took the heavy bread and began to devour it. "Where have you been?" he asked. "In the forest." "Did you know they've been searching for you?" My mouth full, I nodded. Aycliffe claims you stole money from the manor." "Father," I said, "in all my life, I've never even been there." "I don't doubt you." The priest said, gently putting his hand to my face to calm me. "Most people in the village don't believe the accusation either. But why does Aycliffe put your name to the crime?" I told the priest what happened when I ran from my mother's burial, my fall, my waking to witness the meeting in the clearing, Aycliffe's attempt to kill me. He said none of this, the priest said. It's true. What was the thing the steward read? The priest asked. He never mentioned that either. I don't know, I said. Then I asked, who was the man he met? Sir Richard de Bray, the priest said. He's brought word from Lord Furnival. God keep him well. He's brought word that Lord Furnival, God keep him well, has returned from the wars. He's ill and expected to die. The stranger said Aycliffe might act immediately. About what? I shrugged. He answered, he said, are you not her kin? This is Asa's son saying this. I shrugged. He said, are you not her kin? Do you not see the consequences if you don't? To which Aycliffe replied, a great danger to all of us. Then the man said, precisely. There could be those who will see it so and act accordingly. You'll be placed in danger too. It made no sense to me, I said. The prince pondered the words in silence. Father, I said, what will happen if I'm caught? The priest put his hand on my shoulder. The steward said, he declared you a wolf's head. A wolf's head? I gasped, horrified. Do you understand what it means? That I'm considered not human? I said, my voice faltering. That anyone may kill me? Is that why they put down our house? I suppose. But why? The priest sat back and gave himself over to thought. In the dim light, I studied his face. He seemed distraught, as if the pain of the whole world had settled in his soul. Father, I ventured, is it something about my mother? He bowed his head. When he looked up, it was to gaze at me. Asta, son, unless you flee, you won't live long. But how can I leave? I said. I'm bound to the land. They'll never give me permission to go. He sighed, reached forward, and placed the side of one frail hand aside my face. Asta, son, listen to me with the greatest care. When I baptized you, you were named Crispin. I was, I cried. It was done in secret. What's more, your mother begged me not to tell you or anyone. She chose to simply call you son. What a silly mother. Sorry, that was me. Forgive me. But why? I asked. He took a deep breath and then said, did she tell you anything about your father? Once again, the priest took me by surprise. My father? Only that he died before I was born, in the great mortality, I reminded him. But what has that to do with my name, or any of this? Dearest boy, the priest said wearily, I beg you to find your way to some town or city with its own liberties. If you can stay there for a year and a day, you'll gain your freedom. Freedom, I said. What has that to do with me? You could live by your own choices as a high-born lord or a king. Father, I said, that's impossible for me. I am what I am. I know nothing but Stromford. Even so, you must go. There are cities enough, Canterbury, Great Wexley, Winchester, even London. What? What are these places like? They have many souls living there, far more than here, too many to count, but I assure you, they are Christians. Father, I said, I don't even know where these cities are. I am not certain of myself. Wait. I am not certain. I'm not so certain myself, he admitted. Follow the roads. Ask for help as you go. God will guide you. Is there no other way? You could find an abbey and offer yourself to the church, but it's a grave step, and you're hardly prepared. In any case, you don't have the fees. If I had them, they would be yours. No, the most important thing is for you to get away. There's something about my mother that you're keeping from me. Is there not? I said. He made no reply. Father, I pressed. Was God angry at her and me? He shook his head. It's not for men to know what God does or does not will. What I do know is that you must leave. Frustrated, I rose up, only to have the priest hold me back. Your way will be long and difficult, he said. If you can remain hidden in the forest for another day, I'll find some food to sustain you for a while, and perhaps someone will know the best way to go. As you say, your obedience speaks well of you. Come back tomorrow night, prepared to leave. Meet me at Goodwife Peregrine's house. I'll ask her to give you something to protect you on your way. I started off again. And, he added, as if coming to a decision, when you come, I'll tell you about your father. I turned back. Why can't you tell me now? Better, safer to learn such things just before you go. That and my blessing is all I can give. Was he a sinner? I demanded. Was he a sinner? Did he commit some crime? Should I be ashamed of him? I'll tell you all you know when you come to Peregrine's. When you come to Peregrine's, make sure it's dark so you'll not be seen. He took his hand, kissed it, and then I took his hand, kissed it, and started off, only to have him draw me back again. Can you read? No more than my mother. But she could. Father, you're greatly mistaken. She could write too. I shook my head in puzzlement. These things you say, a name, reading, writing? My father, why would my mother keep such things from me? The priest became very still. Then, from his pocket, he removed my mother's cross of lead, the one with which she so oft prayed, which was in her hands when she died. I had forgotten about it. He held it up. Your mother's. I know, I said suddenly. Do you know what's on it? Some writing, I think. I saw your mother write these words. I looked at him in disbelief. But, tomorrow, he said, cutting me off and folding my fingers over the cross. I'll explain. Just remember, God mends all. Now go, he said, and stay well hidden. Filled with dissatisfaction, I stepped from the church. As I did, I thought I saw a shadow move. Concerned that I'd been observed, I stood still and scrutinized the place where I'd seen movement, but nothing shifted and gave sound. Deciding it had been just my fancy, and in my case, too upset to investigate, I made my way back to the forest where I slept, but poorly. Why had I been so falsely accused? I kept asking myself, how could I be proclaimed a wolf's head? Regarding my father, why had my mother told me nothing about him? And what possible matter of importance could Father Quinel reveal of that connection? Mostly, however, I kept marveling at the priest's revelations about my mother, that she'd been given me a name, Crispin. It did not seem to be me. If true, why had she kept it secret? As for her being able to read and write, surely that could not be true. But if true, why would she have kept such skills from me? In the darkness where I lay, I had her cross before my eyes. Of course, I could make out nothing. In any case, I could not read. If there was one person I thought I knew, depending on and trusting utterly, it was my mother. Yet I'd been told things that she did not know, that I did not know of her. I hardly knew what to think. Closer to the truth, I was in such a state of wretched disorder. I did not want to think. The things the priest had said to me, the things the priest said made my heart feel like a city under siege. Chapter 9. In the early morning, I climbed back on the rock to watch for any hunting party that might resume its search for me. Happily, I saw none. Not entirely trusting what I saw, I spent my day in anxious idleness, watching, dozing, searching for acorns and berries for my food. Sometimes I prayed for guidance, as my mother had done, her small cross pressed between my hands. Occasionally, I would say the name Crispin out loud. It was rather like a new garment that replaces an old, desired but not yet comfortable. I tried to guess what the priest was going to tell me about my father. In truth, I feared the worst, but he was an outlaw. I feared the worst, that he was an outlaw, perhaps a traitor, or someone exiled from the church. A person to make me even more ashamed of myself than I already was. I even wondered that if that was why I had become a wolf's head, because my father had been one. But what I kept pondering endlessly were the priest's revelations about my mother. Though the day seemed to last forever, night returned at last. When it became completely dark, I set out for the village and the church. Though upset, I was resolved to do as the priest had instructed. The night was clear. A slender moon was in the sky. Nothing along the way gave me pause. But no sooner did I draw near the church than a figure rose up before me. I stopped, heart pounding. "Is that Asa's son?" came a whispered voice. Afraid to answer, I kept still. "It's me, Serdek," the voice said. Serdek was a village boy, a little older than myself. Instantly suspicious, I said, "What do you want?" "Father Quinel told me to come," he said. "I was to say he could not meet you." "Not meet me?" I cried. "Instead, he said you were to follow me." "But where is he?" I said. "And why couldn't he come?" "I don't know." "Why did he speak to you?" I said. I don't know that either," Serdek stammered. I stared into the dark. "Where am I to follow you?" "Along the road that leads west," Serdek said. "Father Quinel said to say it's the safest way to go." "But he told me to go to Goodwife's Peregrine's," I protested, "to meet him there." "I told you, I can't." Not certain I should trust the boy, but unsure what to do, I stood there. I stood where I was. Serdek moved off a few paces. "Are you coming?" he called. "I need to do as I was told," I said, and set off in the direction of Peregrine's cottage. Serdic followed. Peregrine was not just the oldest person in our village. She had a special wisdom for healing, midwifery, and ancient magic. The village hag, she was a tiny, stooped woman with a dull red mark on her right cheek and wayward hairs upon her chin. It was she, no doubt, who had delivered me into this world. Like others, I looked upon her with fear and fascination. The old crone's cottage, like most other Stromford dwellers, was built with few timbers. It had a thatched roof and daub and wattle walls. There was a space to either side of the single entryway, which had no door. One side of the space was for her animals, her cow, pigs, goose, and general storage. The other side was for her living. I came through the entryway, full and foreboding. An open fire pit lay on Peregrine's side and gave the only light. Smoke thickened the air, making the herbs that hung from the rafters look like dangling carcasses. Over the fire sat a 3-logged iron pot in which something cooked. The food smells made my mouth water. "Who's there?" Peregrine called through the smoke in her grasping, broken-toothed voice. "It's me, Asta's son." "Is that the priest with you?" "It's Serdek." "Where's the priest? I expected him." "He told me he couldn't come," said Serdek. He had come up close behind me." "Oh, he told me he couldn't come," said Serdek. Serdek had come close behind me. She peered at the boy through the smoke. "Did he give a reason?" "None." Muttering, "Something must have happened," she looked up into my face. Her stench was strong, and I was aware of the mark on her face. "Are you ready to go?" she asked. "The priest said I must." You're being haunted by many. The steward's offering 20 shillings reward for you." 20 shillings, I cried. The amount was half the year's wages. No one in the village had such a sum. Why should he offer so much? "He wants you dead," she said. "Do you know where the steward will be looking?" I was frightened. I said, "Oh, no, forgive me." "Do you know where the steward will be looking?" I said, very frightened. Serdek answered, "The bailiff told people he intends to go along the northern road. The best to go south," Peregrine had said to me. "Are there towns or city there?" I asked. I wouldn't know," the old woman said. "Now draw closer," she commanded. "The priest asked me to provide you this with protection. I do it for him, Asta's boy, not you." I stepped forward reluctantly. She reached up and dropped a thong with a small leather pouch over my neck. Then she spoke some words I didn't understand. "Eat this before you go," she said, thrusting a bowl of porridge into my hand. After putting the cross of lead into the leather pouch, I stuffed porridge into my mouth with my fingers. Once done, I returned the bowl. "And here," the old woman said, offering me a bag. "It's some bread. It won't take you far, but it'll take you off." As soon as I took the bag, the old woman grasped my arm, and her tiny hand pulled me into the entryway, all but pushed me out. "God be with you, Asta's son." She, too, wished me gone. Chapter 10. "Don't go south," Serdek said as soon as we were able and alone. "Why not?" I said, trying to push away my disquiet. "It's what I told you. The steward will be looking north." Why should he have said that if he wished to keep it secret? I think he wasn't. He wants me. He wants you south. Go a different way. But which way? I said. If the steward said he's looking north, go the way they least expect, west. West. That's what Father Quinel said I'd do. That's what Father Quinel said to do. But what would take me by the manor house? But that would take me by the manor house, I said. The last place anyone would think you'd go. Though I was not sure, I trusted Cerdic. C-E-R-D-I-C. I trusted Cerdic. What he said made sense. But I said, I want to go by the church first. Maybe Father Quinel's there. You better hurry. With Cerdic at my side, I made my way through the village. For safety's sake, I kept away from the road, skirting behind the cottages, moving quickly along the back lanes. Upon reaching the church, I knocked on the door to the priest room. When no one answered, I went into the church proper. No one was there either. Cerdic must have sensed my thoughts. Perhaps, he said, he's waiting on the other side of the river. Maybe that's why he said to go that way. Grasping at my hope, I shrugged around to the road and moved in a westwardly direction. Cerdic stayed close. Soon Lord Furnival's manor house loomed before us. Light beamed through a window upon the road that ran before it. The light illuminated the boundary across, and I could see the mill just opposite the manor. To see the cross moved me greatly. It meant I was truly about to leave. I hesitated. It's the only way, Cerdic said. He made the sign of the cross over his heart. I peered into the dark, seeing no one but praying that Father Quinel would be waiting for me across the river. Keep walking, Cerdic said. I took but a few more steps, when a beating sound, as if someone were striking a drum, came from behind. Startled, I halted and peered back into the darkness. There was still nothing to be seen, though the drum kept beating. Then I realized Cerdic had begun to back away from me. I turned to face the boundary across again. This time I saw shadowy forms rise from the side of the road. It was 4 men. They lumbered across the road, blocking my way. Cerdic, I called. When he made no reply, I looked around. He was gone. I swung back. I saw now that 2 of the men were armed with glaives. In another's hand, I saw the shimmering glint of a sword. I turned around to see if I could retreat, only to see 4 more men approach. I had been led into a trap. I knew he shouldn't have trusted Cerdic. Daggone it. All right, that was my opinion. Chapter 11. Aista Sun. Aista Sun, came Aycliffe's voice. In the name of Lord Furnival, you are herewith charged with theft. Give way. I was too stunned to move. The boy's a wolfhead, the steward shouted. Slay him if you can. From each side, men ran forward. I ran the only way open to me, toward the mill. Reached it, I felt about its outer walls. Finding a grip, I hoisted myself up in hope of escaping by climbing and hiding, but then a great crack exploded a hand's breadth from my head. Twisting around, I saw an arrow embedded in the timbers of the mill. Faint with horror, I loosened my grip and dropped to the ground. For a moment I squatted, trying to regain my breath and my wits. Hearing the men draw closer, I leaped up and scrambled around the corner of the mill. Aycliffe urged the men on. Hurry! He went around the mill. Head him off. He mustn't escape. The other side of the mill was completely dark. For all I saw, I might have been blind. Sure enough, the next moment my feet slipped out from under me, and I crashed into water. Gasping for breath, I flailed around until my feet touched bottom. The water was up to my chest. I dropped into the mill race. The ditch where the river water ran to turn the mill's wheels. Knowing I was in no danger of drowning, I paused, to catch my breath and listen. In the darkness, I heard the steward continually cry out while the other men stumbled about, trying to find where I was. Deciding to use the mill race as a path, I waded forward against the water flow, knowing it would take me to the river. The farther I went, the more the tumult behind me lessened. Even so, I had little doubt they were still searching. The press of water increased. Stopping, I grasped the edge of the race and hauled myself out, rolled over and hugged the ground. I could hear the river before me. I crawled forward, making my way down a gentle slope until my hand touched water again. It was the river. Unable to swim, not certain how deep the river was at the spot, I hugged the bank, too timid to pass over. I spied lights upstream. They looked like torch flares. The men were hovering near the fording place, thinking I'd try a crossing there. I had to either cross where I was or go a different way. Afraid of the river, I chose to turn and work my way back to the mill run. I slipped in, waded across, and came up on the other side, gaining firm ground. I began to run. I went past the cottages and across new plowed fields until I reached the road. Not stopping, I rushed on. In such moonlight as there was, I made my way to the southern side, the southern end of Stromford, and another boundary cross. It was when I knelt down to pray that I saw a form on the ground. It took a moment for me to realize someone was lying there. My first thought was that it was a guard meant to stand against me and that he had fallen asleep. But when the person didn't move, I drew forward, albeit timidly. It was Father Quinel. He lay very still. "Father," I called softly. He did not answer. I knelt down, reached out and touched him gently. "Father," I said a second time. He still did not move. I peered closer, only to see that his throat had been slit. His blood, made black by night, lay pooled upon the ground. Stifling a shriek, I knelt down, my whole body shaking, terrified. I made a short and desperate prayer that is, to St. Giles, imploring his blessing on the priest and on myself. That done, I ran away. God, I was certain, had completely abandoned me. This is the end of these 3 chapters. I'll be back in the next.